Hello and welcome to the editorial analysis of the Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the editorial of the 19th of August. So coming to the first article, the far right's disruption of globalization. Now the context here is with regards to the trade war that is ongoing between US and China, in specific between US and China, but otherwise if we will analyze, we'll come to know that it is not only these two countries, but rather this is a global event that is taking place in the world. So that is why this issue becomes important for us, despite the fact that India does not have much of a role to play here. This is between two other countries, but because of this issue being so important, it has become relevant for us. So coming to the analysis, the first issue that has been discussed here is with regards to the agenda that has now been reversed. Now basically you should know that in the past, the agenda of the Western countries, which were led by US, that is the capitalist groups, had an agenda of globalization as well as liberalism. Now it is this particular group, again led by US, that has reversed the agenda completely, and now these are the people who are again asking for protectionism, which was something that they were fighting for a very long time. They are now saying that there should be domestic production and there should be a reduction in trade deficits. So all of these ideas are what are reflecting a changed strategy, a changed agenda. So that is one important analysis. Another thing that is important are the countries that are targeted primarily by US. So first and foremost, China, we all know, it has been targeted. Also, you should know that it is not only China that is targeted, some other countries are also being targeted. For example, the North American Free Trade Agreement is what was to be signed, but this is what has not been implemented effectively by US in the context of two specific countries, one being Canada and also in the context of Mexico. So several other countries, also with European countries, this is what is going on. We all know that recently, also in the context of India, some trade issues are what are there between US as well as between US as well as India. So all of these issues are what are being developed now, and also what is happening is that several countries are what are coming under this kind of umbrella, or they're coming under the umbrella of this reversed agenda. So that is what becomes important for us. Another analysis is with regards to China specifically. There is no doubt that trade war more specifically is between US and China. So now what has happened is that this tariff, it is basically an increase in tariffs that was taking place by US for the imports that were taking place from China. For instance, initially it started as 25% tariffs being levied on imports to the tune of $50 billion coming from China. Then this changed to that if $200 billion of imports were what were being charged at 10% of tariff. Then this is what has recently increased to $300 billion of imports that are coming from China. They will be imposed with a tariff of again 10%. Not only these tariffs are what are being increased by the US on China, another issue is with regards to some specific sanctions on individual business firms. For example, Huawei is a Chinese company that has been targeted by the US. The trade deficit basically is what is very wide between US and China. China has a trade surplus here to the tune of approximately $420 billion, and this is what US is time and again highlighting. But one important analysis in this context that has been offered in the editorial is something of a disguised trade. Now these are the official figures that have been given, but some trade is what is not recorded. For example, some of US, the multinational companies in US, their subsidiaries are what are benefiting from China, and the trade that they are getting is what is not included here. So there is some degree of disguised trade also that does take place, and it is being estimated that this is to the tune of $200 billion, and this trade is what US is not taking into account, and as a result of which what is happening is that this figure of trade deficit is what is appearing too large. So that is one important analysis which has been given in the context of China particularly. Next, what is important is the issue of currency manipulation. Again, a very important issue. Now basically this is what China has been accused of several times. What China does is that it deliberately depreciates its currency, that is the yuan. What happens by doing this is that once the currency, that is yuan, is depreciated, the exports of China become very cheaper, and as a result of which its export competitiveness increases. So this kind of manipulation is what is currency manipulation, and this is what China does, and because of this also US is accusing China, and it has gone ahead with such stringent measures against China. So that is what is important. Another important analysis is that this is what is leading to the wave of deglobalization. This is what is being feared globally, especially the IMF is talking about it, the WTO is talking about it. This is what is being called as a form of a tariff aggression that is developing between different countries. They are targeting each other, imposing tariffs, aggressive tariffs, and this is what is leading to a situation of deglobalization emerging in the world. So this is important. Also, what is important here is that a mention of TPP is what you should remember, TPPA for that matter. It was the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement which was to be implemented. It was agreed by Barack Obama, former president of US, but just when with the new government coming into power under the Trump administration, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement was also suspended. So when an analysis is what is talked about the different countries that are being targeted, that is where you should also talk about the TPPA. So that is again something that is important. Another thing that is important here in the idea of deglobalization is that some communities, for example, the farmers, the workers, these are the communities which actually did not benefit much out of globalization. Whether these communities of farmers and industrial workers be in US or for that matter even in India, we will see, there is only one section of the society which benefited, and the gap between the rich and the poor increased, it widened. So it is in this particular context what is happening is that political parties are now coming in with the agenda that everybody should be favored, and the discontentments that were there vis-a-vis the globalization, the concept of globalization, the discontentments which were there in that particular context are what are now being tapped into. They are being explored by the political parties, and that is what is resulting in them coming to power. And this is also the key idea of this particular editorial, that it is this idea that the political parties are feeding upon, and that is how they are coming in power, and that is why this wave of deglobalization is what is coming up. So this is important. Another important analysis is in the context of Europe. Just as I told you, several countries are involved. Even Europe, the continent Europe itself is also experiencing a wave of deglobalization. We have seen it in the European Union, primarily in the context of the Brexit. So that is again something that is important. Right-wing populism is what is being seen in Europe. Several right-wing parties are coming to power. There is also something that is important in these countries is the anti-immigration rhetoric. This is again something that is important, which is not in India's interest particularly, because we have a lot of our Indian diaspora in foreign countries. So if there is an anti-immigration sentiment also developing in these countries, it is not welcome. So whenever you are talking about the trade war, try and bring out this analysis of anti-immigration also. It will give a holistic view to your analysis. So indeed the article is important. Trade war, one of the most important development of these times, our particular era, this particular time. So definitely question is what you can expect. So that is the relevance of this particular article. Coming to the next article, something special. The context here is with regards to India-Bhutan relations, again something that is important. Now basically some of these neighbors are what are constant. You have to be prepared with almost all our neighbors and what are the irritants and the positives of the relation. All of that is what you have to be aware of. There is no escape from that. So first issue that is important here is that recently Prime Minister Modi was on a 2-day visit to Bhutan. This is what is a summit level visit. Summit level visit means that the top level visit is what is taking place. India's president gave his maiden visit to Bhutan. Similarly, visits are reciprocated from Bhutan itself. The Prime Minister of Bhutan, the King himself, often visits India. So what is important in the relationship is that summit level visits are what continuously take place. So that is important. Another important analysis that has been offered here is with regards to the Mahendra hydropower plant. This is something that is important. This is a hydropower plant that is between that has for long been an important plant that was going on, an important development, and it is for this particular power plant that the Prime Minister delayed his visit also. This is a 720 megawatt plant which is now functional. So if a question does come, you should talk about this particular plant. You should, there are many things in the relationship which are static. A student who is preparing for this exam for very many years will also know some constant and basic aspects of the India-Bhutan relations. There is nothing new to it. But if you add these 1 or 2 points like this about this hydropower plant, it shows that the student is in touch with the current affairs, and this will only give a good impression. So try to remember these newer developments. It gives a good impression. So, and definitely if a good impression, more marks, which is vital for mains. So that is what is important. Another thing that you should know here is some traditional closeness between both these countries. Both the countries have open borders. There is close alignment as well as consultation on foreign policy. There are regular and open communication on strategic issues between these countries. India has always had support from Bhutan in Indian and security matters. For example, the King himself had taken efforts in the year 2003 to drive out the Ulfa rebels. And recently also in the Doklam issue, Bhutan has very much stood against China and in support of India. So that is why the relation between both the countries is very, very symbiotic. It is one of the most beneficial relationship in foreign policy of India. So that is what is comprising of the traditional closeness. Next, what is important are the irritants. Now, definitely there are some points of irritants also between both the two countries. The first issue is with regards to the power purchasing policy. Now, in this particular context, recently there were some irritants. Bhutan was not happy with India's power purchasing policy, which comprised of some rigid rates. Also, there was a refusal to allow Bhutan to join India's national power grid, which was at that point of time an irritant. Also, it was restricted from trade with Bangladesh. That is another issue. Also, Bhutan has a very much close relationship with environment, you should know. Environment in this country is revered highly. Now, tourism from India to Bhutan has increased to such an extent that Bhutan is fearing that this might impact the environment. Even the hydropower projects that India is developing in Bhutan are posing some environmental risks, and this is what is an irritant that is developing in Bhutan. So that is what is important. Also, what is important is the motor vehicle agreement. This is an agreement that was to be implemented under the BBIN project, which is the Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal project. But because of these environmental risks only, Bhutan is not very much in the favor of this particular agreement, which is again an irritant. This project is what has still now been held up, so that is important. Another issue in irritants is the newer opportunities. Some countries like US have also made summit level visits to Bhutan. Bhutan is important for China also. Previously for Bhutan, the students were only seeking education in India, but now they are going more beyond India. They are going to countries like Australia, Singapore, Thailand. So definitely there is competition from other countries also, and it is important that India and Bhutan maintain this relationship despite the scenario where competition from other countries is what is increasing. So that is what has been talked about. Indeed important. This is static part of international relations and GS papers. All our neighbors are what you should cover, and you should cover those countries which are in use. So that is how at least one topic will become good and well prepared for all of you. So that's about this particular article. Coming to the next article, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Data. Very, very important article. The context is with regards to the 4th National Tiger Survey. I have discussed an article on this in detail. What were the findings of the survey? All of that is what I have already discussed. So those of you who are new to our channel, please go and watch that video. It will help you about the survey. Now, roughly you should know that as per the survey, approximately the tiger census is approximately 2,900 something. So it is being said that it is approximately 3,000 tigers in India now. So this is a major achievement for India, because India's tiger count was even less than 1,400. So from there to this is what is the major achievement for India. So that is the first thing about the National Tiger Survey. So coming to the issues which have been discussed, some history of the National Tiger Survey in India is what has been given. Now basically, the tradition to conserve tigers in India is what goes back to the year 1970s under the regime of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. She took personal interest in this issue, and she asserted that India must conserve its tiger population. And then since this particular time, the method that India was using was the pug mark method. Pug mark method simply means that the pug marks of the tigers in the forest are different from each other. So a pug mark census is what is done, and the first census is what came out in the year 2006. So this is again something that is important, and this census itself used the pug mark method. This is important. Now, despite the fact that in the year 1990s, several new methods were developed. Of course, in the year 1970, it was the pug mark method only. But later, newer methods started developing. For example, the distance sampling method, occupancy sampling of tiger spoor. Now, what is spoor here is, in this article, several times it has been mentioned. The spoor simply means the track of an animal, or for that matter, the scent of a particular animal. So, this is a method in which the sampling is what is done of an animal's track or his scent, and that is how the animal is tracked. So the distance sampling method, occupancy sampling of tiger spoor, the photographic capture and recapture methods, all of these methods were what were developed by the year 1990s. But India did not go ahead with these methods, and India continued with its pug mark method. It said that that is what is the best method, until the shocking revelations which came in the year 2005, especially in the context of the Sariska Reserve. What happened at that point of time was that it was found that all the tigers in the Sariska Reserve were poached, and the tiger population in this reserve became a zero. Then in the year 2006, what became important was that the government came into action and a tiger task force was what was developed under the Prime Minister himself, and it was after this that the author says that it was expected that newer methods will be used. Definitely newer tiger census methods were used, but transparency is what was lacking in them, which brings us to the next analysis of the conservation efforts. There is no doubt that India has worked on the conservation of tigers. We can be critical of the data, but you cannot go on completely against the government. Yes, conservation has taken place. Tigers have been recovered from the brink of extinction in India, and that is something that is exemplary. But the issue is that honest evaluation is what is not taking place. Now basically an honest evaluation is always required to assess whether success or failure of the project or the steps that are taken by the government. In this case, what is happening is that the forest bureaucracy itself is the case of is the judge of its own case. The forest bureaucracy is responsible for the conservation. It is the forest bureaucracy which is responsible for counting the tigers. So it might happen that they might give some biased figures. That is what is important. Also, what is happening is in the tiger surveys or the tiger census that some technical jargon is what is being used. Very, very difficult words they are using. They are not very clear about the methods that they are using. So as a result of which a lot of confusion is what is there around the data. So that is important. Next, what is important are the suggestions which have been offered in the editorial. The suggestion is that the government should immediately shift to the occupancy sampling of tigers pool method. Also, a public-private partnership model is what is required, where independent scientific evaluation of the tiger numbers is what is required in India. India should rather invite foreign experts to come and count the tigers in our forests. But India is shying away from that, which is raising questions on the legitimacy of the data. Also, what is important is with regards to the goals that India has in the context of the conservation of the tiger population. Now, here what is important is that our goal is to double the tiger population, especially till the next Tiger Summit in the year 2022. So this is what you should know, that till the next Tiger Summit, if a question also does come, this could be an opening statement also, that India aims to double its tiger population by the year 2022. But one thing that you should know here is that basically India has a potential. The habitat of India is such that approximately 10,000 to 15,000 tigers is what India can have. But the scientific experts say that, and this is what is the government figure. The government claims that probably it will not be possible for India to have more tigers than 3,500. So the editorial is advocating that why should India go less, or for that matter, why should India compromise on the numbers when India has the potential? The editorial is saying that if India is aiming to becoming a $5 trillion economy, why shouldn't it invest on its forests and its natural conservation and take the numbers higher? If not 10,000, at least 7,000 or 8,000. India should at least target a little higher than what it is doing now. So that is what is important. Another important word that I found a key analysis is with regards to the idea of scientific ethics. Now, some ethics are required in releasing of data. You cannot hide data, it is unethical. This is what conservation project is, something that is done on public money, and the public has the right to know. So the public's in the public interest, it is important that the government comes up with honest and ethical data, so that adequate analysis is what can be made by the scientific fraternity. So that is what has been talked about in this particular article. The issues important from the environment section of the general study mains paper, that is where the relevance definitely is. But another importance is with regards to the issue of data crisis in India. I have discussed articles on this in the past also. The issue is that in India, all the data, it is seeming that is being manipulated by the government as of now. That is the scenario or the fate of the current times, which is challenging. So in that particular context, this becomes important that even the tiger survey data is what is being questioned. So that is again an area where you can use this particular article as an example. So that's how you have to use this particular article. So that's about this particular article, and that's about our discussion today. I thank you all for watching the video.